Hey everybody, this is Henry here, with something a little different than what I usually do these days. Today is the 10-year anniversary of my channel, Crimson2091. I wanted to do something special for it, and I decided that I'd take a look at some of the new Thomas Wooden Railway items that were released last year. I know at this point they've been out for over a year, and most people have already done reviews on these items, but I thought it'd still be cool to take a look at them on my 10-year anniversary. And here's why. When I joined YouTube in 2013, things were really looking up for the Thomas & Friends franchise. The year before, the show was in a rut with many 3 strikes and out stories, and the merchandise, especially with Wooden Railway, was pretty questionable. But the show got quite the renaissance with Andrew Brenner becoming the head writer. The show became worth watching again, and the Wooden Railway engines got updated CGI faces that looked 10 times better than their counterparts the year before. And there were some great new items coming out at the time, such as re-releases of the Flying Scotsman, D199, and Fergus, as well as some great models of the newcomers at the time, such as Connor, Caitlin, Stafford, Millie, and more. It was a pretty fun time to be a Thomas fan in terms of the show and the merchandise. Let's fast forward to today. The past few years for the franchise definitely haven't been the best, with the Big World Big Adventures reboot and Thomas Wooden Railway being replaced with Thomas Wood. Definitely a downgrade for sure, and neither lasted very long before being abandoned. A lot of people, including myself, thought that it was going to be the end of the Thomas & Friends franchise, but we were mistaken. Well, unfortunately, the show looks like it's at a point of no return with all engines go. Something happened with the merchandise that I don't think anyone expected. Wooden Railway came back in 2022 with a whole new design, even different from the Wooden Railway we used to have. There's a lot of detail in places there never was before, and while there are some things that people prefer about the old Wooden Railway, it seems that most people agree that these are quality items worth getting. It's crazy to think that 10 years ago there were great items coming out that ultimately convinced me to finally make a YouTube channel and make videos. And now today, after 5 or so years of nothing of quality worth buying, we now have items that make you excited to go to the store to buy. From the time Wood was released to now, I haven't bought a single item for the range. I went to a day out with Thomas in 2018. And I was so stubborn that I bought one of the 2017 Wooden Railway Day Out with Thomas items they had left over from the year before, instead of the 2018 Wood item. So obviously I haven't bought anything brand new from a store in a long time, and I honestly didn't think I ever would again. This new line really came out of nowhere, and it's definitely worth checking out in my opinion. Last summer, I went on a trip to Chicago with a bunch of friends. We went to a day out with Thomas at the Illinois Railway Museum, and I got Thomas, Percy, Henry, Rebecca, Diesel, a troublesome truck, and the 2022 Day Out with Thomas item. I was originally going to just take a look at these, but then I had another meetup in October. During that trip, we went to Barnes & Noble, and they had some of the items that Day Out with Thomas didn't have, and I decided to get even more. I got Edward, Gordon, James, Toby, Emily, Rosie, and Hero. To top it all off, I also got Nia later on. I planned on getting at least some of this new line, but I didn't think I'd get almost all of the first wave. I can get a little crazy like that sometimes, but anyway, let's get started. I actually haven't taken any of these out of the packaging until now, so let's take a look at the packaging itself first. When I first saw this packaging on Amazon, I wasn't the biggest fan of it, because I thought it was just an enclosed box with no way of seeing the items themselves until you open them, unlike what we had with the old Wooden Railway, and even Wood. However, I later found out that you can actually slide the box open and feel the item, which I thought was a pretty awesome and clever way to package these items. Of course, the engines are zip tied into the packaging, so you can't just take them out of the box this way. Otherwise, these would probably get stolen like crazy. Let's move on to the models themselves. As you can see, these engines are drastically different from their predecessors, but not in a bad way like it was with Wood. It's a way that, in my opinion, is mostly good. While I'll probably always prefer the classic Wooden Railway models, there's a lot to like about these new ones. Most of the engines in this line so far have more accurate wheel configurations. Never did I think that Henry and Gordon of all engines would have those two wheels in front of an official wooden railway model, and from what I can tell so far, they turn curves well. The engines also have more molded details on their bodies than ever before. The wheel arches on the engines are actually defined. And no, I'm not talking about how they were on the wood models. Those were just blocky and didn't look good at all. These arches are actually shaped how they're supposed to be. Circular! Out of the models that I have so far, I gotta say that Percy is my favorite. His scaling and proportions are perfect to me. He also serves as a great example of how close attention to detail these new models are. In the show, Percy isn't symmetrical. The sandbox on his left side is taller than the one on his right side. On his model, it accurately depicts this. Special thanks to Tom's Tank Merch for pointing this out. Wooden Railway has always been a pretty simplistic brand design-wise, and that's something I've always admired about it. But I gotta say, this new line did the extra detail right. Even characters like Toby and Diesel, whose wood models aren't terrible considering that they already had square designs, have unique models that have details that they never had before. We can finally say we have an official 6-wheel Toby. When I first saw Edward and James on Twitter, I wasn't too sure how to feel about their models. On their promo pictures, their bodies seemed a bit too long and skinny, much like the old style Henry. However, once I saw them in person, they didn't look too bad. While I prefer their older models, these look decent and fit in well with the design of the rest of the engines. It's also nice to have engines like Nia and Rebecca, who didn't have wooden railway models before. There were only the wood versions. Same with Rosie in her red livery, which I really like. I didn't even have a classic wooden railway hero at the time I got this one. And I gotta say, behind Percy, this has to be my second favorite model of this line. He's big and grand like heroes should be. Emily is great as well. The boxy boiler is a little scary, but it was probably necessary for the decals, which I understand. By the way, I really like how the tenders on the bigger engines have 6 wheels. Even if they can't fit on turntables, it really sends home the point of how big these engines are supposed to be. There's only really 2 things that I'm not a fan of, and that's the faces and the wheel design. When I say I have a problem with the faces, I don't mean how they're made. I honestly don't have an issue with the printed on eyes and mouths. While I prefer the more molded faces on the older models, I don't think this is bad. What I mean is the facial expressions. While the decision to not make all the engines smiling and give them different expressions is definitely an interesting one, I can't really say I like it all that much. To me, it's just strange to have engines like Gordon and Toby have worried looks on their faces all the time. Percy, as I said before, is my favorite model of this new line so far. I like it so much that I'd even consider using it in my videos as opposed to the one I usually use. But him having a surprised look on his face when almost everyone else has a smile just wouldn't be aesthetically pleasing to me. And yeah, I realize that if I edited facial expressions, this wouldn't be as big of an issue. But unfortunately, I'm not that advanced, even after 10 years. Sorry, it was an accident. As for the wheels, maybe I'm just used to the design we've had for the past 30 years, even with the wood models, but I don't really know how to feel about this new design. In my opinion, it makes the wheels stick out a bit too much. It makes it feel like the engines aren't big enough for their wheels. From the looks of it, it looks like they were trying to replicate what real engine wheels are like, where the outside of the wheel sit on the rails while the inside grips onto the inside of the rails so the engine stays on them, which means that the outside of the wooden track is supposed to be the rails, but it doesn't make a whole lot of sense. While I don't have any of the new wooden railway track, the details are pretty similar to the traction rail track, and as you can see, the outside has the sleepers on the side, which makes it pretty clear that the grooves in the track where the wheels actually sit are meant to be the actual rails. However, I don't mind the printed on details. They look pretty nice in my opinion, and here's another good example of how far they went with the accuracy of these models. All the engines I have of this line have counterweights on their wheels, except Percy and Emily, who don't have them on their wheels in the show. That's pretty neat. Nonetheless, these are a couple small things that I change about these models, but by all means they don't ruin them for me whatsoever. All in all, these are great models to have, and I definitely recommend getting them if you get the chance. Not only because they're nice models, but also to show Mattel that this is the kind of quality that's expected to be put into merchandise like this. A big reason I believe Wood didn't last very long is because most people were fed up with the quality of it, kids and fans alike, which led to people not buying a whole lot of it. Like I said before, I don't own a single piece of Thomas Wood. However, I think that these newer models are worth getting, and I hope they make more in the future, as I'm sure many other fans do as well. The best way to show you want more is to support this rebooted line and buy the models, and hopefully Mattel sees how well they're selling and continue the line. I hope you guys have enjoyed hearing me talk about these models. This is the first review style video I've done in almost 5 years. If you liked it and think I should do more videos like this, please let me know. Before I completely close out this review, I want to give a big thanks to my friend Rondog248 for coming down and helping me with building the set for this video and filming a lot of shots for it. Some of my favorite videos I've done are the ones I've worked on with others, and I don't see this one being any different. This is also the first video I filmed in my new studio. A while back, my girlfriend and I moved into our own place, and she insisted I brought my train stuff with me. She also helped with putting up the sky backdrop and making the sides of the skies as well. The table's a bit smaller than my old one, but it allows me to use box lights for better lighting in case you haven't noticed. I'm excited for this new chapter in my video making journey, and I hope to make many more videos with this setup. It's crazy to think that I've been on YouTube for 10 years. The fact I'm still here after all these years just blows my mind. On my 5-year anniversary, I made a thread on Twitter about it, and I said I wasn't sure how much longer I'd be around. If you had told me that I'd be here for another 5 years, I might have believed you, but I'm not for sure. Thank you to everyone that's watched and supported this channel this last 10 years. It really means the world to me. I've met so many great people and made some great friends along the way. From the late night Skype and Discord calls, to the week-long trips and meetups, I've made many memories that'll last a lifetime. My channel's come a long way from what it was 10 years ago to now. Who knows? Maybe I'll be here for another 10. What I do know for sure is that I wouldn't still be here if it weren't for you guys. My friends, acquaintances, viewers, and everyone in between. Thank you everyone for 10 years on YouTube. And as always, thank you for watching.